There we go. All right, so we should be good to go. So welcome everyone to the Cleveland Tableau user group for February 2022. Hard to believe that we're already here. It is 2/2/20. What is it? It's February 22nd, 2022. So 2/22/2022. Try to say that 5 times fast. I couldn't even get it out once. But my name is Jeremy Pattis. I am a leader of the Cleveland Tableau user group, and I will be presenting the power of parameters. So for today, here's our agenda, the welcome. So hey, everyone, welcome. And we'll cover some opening comments. I have a few introductions of myself, and then we'll go over the use cases for parameters. And then I'd love to have a hands-on session with your feedback if there's anything that you'd like to build. For those of you that have Tableau, good news, you already have the data set, you already have Tableau, so you should be good to go. And then we'll wrap it up and we'll talk about our next meeting in April. So welcome, again, Cleveland Tableau user group. If this is your first time, I appreciate you coming out. If you've been to many of these, again, I miss your faces. I miss seeing you guys in person. I really wanted to have a hybrid event where we could be in person and virtual as well. However, we ran into some difficulties and weren't able to secure a spot. But be sure to join our group online. So this is it. You can go to LinkedIn and search for the Cleveland Tableau user group. The link is there. If you want to type it out, you're more than welcome. The leadership team is myself and Mark Rogozinski. And our next meeting is already on the books for April 14th, 2022. Another thing I'd like to mention is the Tableau Conference 2022. It's going to be in Vegas. It's going to be from May 17th through the 19th, and my birthday is sandwiched right in the middle there. So if you guys want to get me a present, you're more than welcome. If not, I totally understand. But I hope to be there, and I hope to see many of you out there. It's an absolute phenomenal place to be. It's a great conference. There's everything from training to certification, brain dates. It's a great way to meet other people. What else is there? There's the Iron Viz competition, and that's done live, and you can see a lot of people doing that. What else do we have? We have Data Night Out, which a lot of times is like a DJ or a concert, and it's kind of a big deal. So that's always a lot of fun. There's some soda pops involved and adult soda pops involved, and everyone has a good time. So lots of fun. The link is down there, and if you're a part of anything having to do with Tableau, I'm sure that you've seen it quite a bit. So that does it for introductions, I believe. Oh, and then there's me. So Jeremy Pattis, I'm a manager of business systems and analytics over at Overdrive Inc. I'm also an adjunct professor over at Baldwin Wallace. I've been with the Tableau user group. I guess it's going on 8 years now, since 2014. I love to use Tableau. If that's not evident, I hope it is. I've worked with companies like Sherwin-Williams, Wolverine, and Estee Lauder in my consulting days. I've also worked on the corporate side for Highland Software and now Overdrive Inc. Again, I teach at Baldwin Wallace, and I teach data visualization and applied marketing analytics at the graduate level. And in my spare time, I like to be with my family. I'm a family man. I have 4 daughters, which is a lot of fun. And I like playing basketball. That's another passion of mine, and play maybe a little bit too many video games. And I also enjoy fishing. I live right by the Sugar River, and I grew up right next to the Rocky River. So it's a lot of fun. It's what I do to kill time. So let's start. Let's talk about the power of parameters. So hopefully this will appeal to a lot of people. And I say that because I think there's people that might not know what a parameter is and can learn something today. And there's people that have been around Tableau and have utilized parameters, and hopefully they see something new. I'm going to try to jam pack as much as I can into these use cases, and hopefully they get the juices flowing, and go into a little bit of detail on how I got there. The second part, what I'd like to do is I'd like for it to be hands-on. I'd like to set up a poll so that you can go ahead and vote on what you'd like to see. So we'll move forward with that. If there's any questions in the meantime, again, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A. I'll be monitoring that as well, looking at my left-hand side. And can someone just give me a confirmation that you can hear me okay and that you're actually seeing my screen? You guys rock. Thank you very much. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into these parameters. So what is a parameter? So Tableau defines it as a parameter is a workbook variable, such as a number, date, or string that can replace a constant value in a calculation, filter, or reference line. But there's so much more to it. You know, that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. For those of you that are into coding, whether it's SQL or R, you know, you could think of it as like a global variable that can be utilized in many places to reduce, well, one, it reduces the amount of code you have to use or type in. And it also is able to put the power in the hands of the end user when it comes to utilizing reports or dashboards. So let me see. Let's see. All right, good. So if you want to check out more about parameters, the link is right here, and or just do a Tableau, just do a Google search for Tableau parameters. The beautiful thing about the Tableau community, I always say this, is if you Google something, you're going to find an answer. The community is phenomenal. All right. So use case number one, search and confirm. So let's say you have a parameter-driven dashboard, and what you want to do is you want to optimize the end user experience. So when they're searching for a specific value, it'll be easy to find. So traditionally, when you can have a long list, right? And those of you that are familiar with the Superstore data set, this is the product names that are listed within there. So if you had a parameter-driven view, and this is what you would see if you wanted to go ahead and click and try to find the product name. It's not very searchable. You kind of have to scroll up and down. It's not the ideal user experience. So let's open up Tableau and create something that might be a little bit better. So here is a search and confirm. So here is the product name of the parameter, right? And you can utilize this traditional method of, again, I click on it, it's alphabetical order, so I can scroll up and scroll down. But there's just so many to sort through. Now, I've developed, well, I didn't develop this, but what I've done here is I've created a search box so that they can search and then click, and then that will set the parameter. So this is done through a combination of using the contains function in a calculated field, as well as looking at a dashboard action based on the parameter that is selected to set the parameter. So let's say I was looking for, I don't know, a table. So I search for the term table, and we'll see that there's also, it brings in things that have adjustable because it's looking for that word. But then I can set this Beavis 36 by 72 conference tables. If I click on it, two things are going to happen. So you'll see that now there's a visual cue, the check mark that lets me know that it's selected. And then there's also the parameter above it, right, that had the drop down. Now that is selected. And I even put a selected product name is the Beavis 36 by 72 conference tables. Now, how did I do that? Let me unhide all sheets. And it's really just through a series of parameters. So here is my product name parameter. So if I go ahead and edit this, you'll see that, again, I just grabbed all the values from that product name, from the product name field. So that's what you see listed there. Then I created a search, which is this product name search text, and the current values table, because you saw me type in table. So that's just an open string. And then the last part is the product name search, which is I labeled S2, so I can find it easy. So again, here's my, let me see if I can make this bigger. Oops. There we go. So here's my contains. Does the product name contain what I'm searching for? And you could always wrap it in lower or whatever if you want to get super technical, but Tableau doesn't seem to care about case, or case sensitivity, so it found it just fine. And then the third part is the product name shape. So here I just said when the product name is equal to this product name parameter, then I want that to drive the shape that's included here. So here are my true false, and when it's selected, I have my checkbox. And then here is my string. So I have a string for what the selected product name is, which is simply the product name that is selected. And then I talked about that dashboard action. So if I go up here to back to my dashboard and I click on dashboard actions. And here's my use case 1. So what I have here is I have on the select, be sure to set my target parameter, which is, again, that original parameter that had that huge list. I want it to be based on the product name. So when someone clicks that product name, again, on the select, when they click on it, it's going to take that value. So again, I think this is kind of a cool trick for utilizing a search capability within parameters in order to help drive the functionality on the end user as they're searching through. So one of the use cases that we have at Overdrive is we might have a list of all the publishers that we're working with. That way it gives the end user the ability to find it, and click it, and ensure it, so then it drives all future dashboards and all future views to that single publisher, library, book, whatever it might be. All right, so hopefully that was thrilling. The next is back from the beginning, highlight and sort. So one of my favorite things to do within Tableau and parameters is using the highlighting and sorting kind of features that might not be top of mind when you're building out your views within Tableau. So what this does is this allows you to utilize parameters to focus on what's matter, to compare them to the others, and to make them to focus on a single item to help it stand out, pop, or just make it easier to interpret. So this one's actually pretty easy, but I think it's a good one. So let's take a look at this. So what I have here is I did this by subcategory, and I have a subcategory table where it's listed the subcategory and all the different measures: discount, profit, quantity, sales. And then I also created a ranking. So I wanted to see the product ranking over time. So what's top ranked all the way through bottom ranked, which in this case is up to 17. Now I have this being driven by a parameter action, much like you saw in the previous one. So now when I hover over any one of these items, it's going to highlight the table, and it's also going to highlight the ranking that you see here. So I'm easily able to say, okay, well, with chairs, here's my chairs. Here's the overall sales, here's the profit. And then I could see in January, it ranked 9th. In February, it was top ranked, then it bounced to 3. And I'm able to see the trending of the rank over time very easily compared to its peers. The other thing that I really like about it is the ability to sort. So in this line chart, what we're looking at is just we're looking at chairs, and this is sales over time or sales over by each month. And we can see that the chairs is what is brought to the forefront, right? And it really pops as compared to the other things. Let's see. Kevin Splitter raised a hand. Let me see if I can answer this. Let's try this. All right, Kevin, can you hear me? Hello? Sorry, I think there were a couple questions. Or raising of hands? Let me see. Let's see. Sorry, everyone. Does anyone have a question at this point? I saw a hand raised and I'm trying to answer it. It might be easier to go through the chat. So if you wouldn't mind chatting it, if you have a question or ask the question in the Q&A, I'd be happy to answer it. Maybe people raise their hands early to indicate they couldn't hear you. Oh, could be. All right, thank you, Lauren. Okay, well, back to this. So I do like to use area charts, and area charts can be pretty powerful. Hold on, let me just. Okay, all right, I'm back. Okay, so with this guy, so again, the area chart to the far right, a lot of times what you'll see is it's hard to see the trending and how it impacts, how a single item impacts, or how a single item is trending over time is what I'm trying to say. So here, what you're able to do is you're able to sort. So when I click on chairs becomes the bottommost thing, right? So then we're able to see the trending over time within the area chart, and we're able to see the values there as well as in terms of how it trends. So to the left, you're able to see how it trends on its own, and on the right, you're able to see how it trends in comparison to everything else. So this, you could also think of other use cases, one being the area chart, another being a stacked bar chart. But times when it's really difficult to see the way that things are stacked on top of one another, this would allow you to do that. So if I click on paper, paper goes to the bottom. It's very thin compared to everything else. We know tables definitely picked up in September, October, November, and we're able to see how that that trends along with everything else. So I think sorting is a great use case, as well as the highlighting that we saw back here. So good combination of both. Now, in order to do this, this is again pretty darn simple. So I'm going to exit out of here and let's look at it. So really, I use this H1, well, H0. Again, looking at the parameter, I added the values simply based on that subcategory parameter. And then right here is simply the selected subcategory. So subcategory equals subcategory. This is going to result in a Boolean statement, so true, false. And that is what I have, that's simply what I have driving the color, is that true false statement. So the true pops in orange, and the false is just that dark gray, or as close to black as I could get it. And that works for this one. And then finally, to get this to work as a sort, again, pretty easy. I'm just sorting the colors. So if I look at the sort, I'm doing it by field, ascending. False is higher than true, or 0 and 1. So this floats to the bottom, and then I'm able to utilize that as my sorting function. So that is use case number 2. So let's take a look at use case number 3. And again, any questions, please feel free to reach out. And we're also going to have the opportunity to go hands-on. So you're going to have the opportunity to choose any of these if we wanted to build them out together. I'd be more than happy to do that. And let's pop back here. So use case 3. All right, so table calculations. Table calculations are actually able to be parameter driven, which I think is pretty cool. This is a little tip that I picked up not too long ago. So you want to be in control of the flow of the table calculations instead of showing this chart 3 times. So this is a heat map, right? And we're looking at it by furniture, office supplies, technology, AKA category. And we're also looking at it by region. And you're looking at the intersection. And we're able to see the percent of total of the table going across. So we have 20%, 28%, 18%, and 33%, which gives us a grand total of 100%. Again, looking at table across. However, if we wanted to show it by table down, you know, I guess traditionally you might show another table that, or another heat map that has that going down. Or if you wanted to show it in total, meaning for the entire table, what the percent of total is for that, you would go ahead and do that and create another view. So let's take a look at this hands-on and see what this looks like in Tableau. So I did a few things here. So here is my table calc select. So I have the choice of going across, down, or table. And you'll see right now I have it going across, and my grand total here is at 100%. Where for each column, it is not 100%. If I look at it by table down, now we see that it's 100% for each column. And then the other, you saw that the colors changed, right? Based on that percent of total. And we also saw that this little helper changed as well. This is my explain. The reason why I like to utilize this explain is that it will help the end user understand, okay, we're looking at percent of total by category. And then finally, we can look at it by the entire table. So we see that the majority is within technology in the West. Close second is technology in the East for our percentage of total sales. And again, this updated to show that it's total sales over the entire table. The other cool thing is now when you hover over, we're able to see what those actual sales were for each part. So sales in the central and furniture category are 44,000, which is 6% of the sales in the entire table, which totals 733,000. And again, if we flip over to across, you'll see that the notification changes. So sales in the central and furniture category are 44,000, which is 21% of the sales across the entire category, which totals 215,000. So again, a couple helpful things there. So in order for me to build this out, I went ahead and had a couple different things. So here we have T0, which this is just a string list of across, down, and table. And then I had a bunch of calculations. So here's T1, this is my table calc across. So this is sum of sales over the total sum sales. Here's my table calc down. It's the exact same thing. Here's my table calc across. Exact same thing here. Here's my selected table calc. So this is just saying when across, choose this, when down, choose this, when it's table, choose this. By the way, when I use parameters, this is the only time that I really use a case when statement. I seem to never use it outside of parameters. So just an interesting use case there. And then what else do I have? I have this explain. All right, so this is the part where I'm explaining. This is that text that pops up based on the parameter value. Then here's the tooltip. So this, this text, along with what is in the tooltip, allowed me to do that. So you'll see that I utilize both the parameters that I've utilized throughout, as well as the region value and the category values to help pass along the information of what is selected and what these totals are. And then finally, I have T7, which is my table calc total. So this helped me get my fixed by category, that helped me get the total there, fixed by region, that helped me get the total there. And then the sales of the overall table are here. I just accomplished that through a level of detail calculations. And then for those of you that might be newer to Tableau or even a seasoned veteran, you might be asking, well, where did you get that grand total? How'd you get it on the right and on the bottom? If you go up to analysis and go over to totals, you'll see a checkbox for show row grand totals and show column grand totals. And that's where that appears. And what that does is, especially when you're using table calculations like this, it helps you make sure that you're doing it the right way and that you're doing it correctly. So if you have a percent of total that's over 100, that might be cause for concern. So we got that going on. So that's use case 3, looking at some table calcs there. Our next one is, let's take a look, is looking at dates. So the insights that are driven by dates or line charts can be impacted by what level of detail you provide. So for this one, I just provided an example of looking at it by day, by month, and by quarter. And you can see that the shape is different amongst them. And you can also garner different insights. Like here, we're easily able to tell by quarter that there's this upward trend from Q1 all the way through Q4. Here we're able to see, again, some of the nuances. We're able to see, okay, February was down a little bit. Maybe that's something we should look into, but we've rebounded in March. A little bit of a lower April, May. We plateaued again in June and that sort of thing. We're looking at through the day lens, we're able to see that, hey, there was a big pop here. We sold $14,000 in a single day in March. What drove that? And we can gain insights that way. Now, what if we wanted to put this in the hand of the end user and also not take up this much real estate? Parameters. So let's go take a look at that parameter. All right. So here we have our dates. So here we could look at it by day, by week, by month, and by year. Oh, by quarter. So this is actually really easy. For those of you that are familiar with the date part function and date trunk function, that's really how I was able to accomplish this in a pretty straightforward manner. So let's take a look at that. All right, so here's what I used for date. Do I have a D0? No, I have a D1. All right, so all I did was enter in these values for the list. So day, week, month, and quarter. And then from there, I went over to my date period. So I created this calculated field where traditionally, where you see the date part. So a couple things that are handy here that I'd like to just throw out. So here is, if you want to know how a function is built or what goes into a function, you can utilize just clicking on this date trunk and make sure this caret is out, and it will give you some detail into what the correct syntax looks like. So here it's just all lowercase quarter, and that's essentially what is being passed here. The other trick I was going to show you, and again, I'm going to try to make this bigger, is if I click describe on the parameter, it will give me the values that are allowed for the parameter. So if you're working in here and you kind of forget, right, you're working on your case statement, you can't remember what it is, you go ahead and utilize this to show day, week, month, and quarter, or to show what values are available within that parameter. So again, this simple date trunc function will take it to the first day of the day, week, month, or quarter that I passed through that parameter, and it's going to provide that here. So the other thing that you can do is you can compare date periods. Now this took a little bit of work. I'm not going to go into great detail here on this one, but I just wanted to illustrate that you can do this. So the current value, let's say I wanted to compare year over year, and I want to look at, here is, I didn't provide the year here, but it's there. So here is January 2021, so this in February 2021. Okay, I get it, it's 2022, but the data I was working with, we'll pretend like it's 2021. So, so here is the current time frame, and here's the previous time frame, and we're able to compare them to each other. And we're also able to say, okay, here's the current value, current year value, here's the previous year value, and we are up 44%, or it's 44% higher than we were in that similar time frame a year ago. Now, what we can do is through the use of calculated fields is we can also change this to month. So we could look at it by month and say, okay, well, how is February 2021 doing compared to January 2021? And we're able to see that so far we are down. And in this case, I actually, part of my equation was looking at the day of the date variable so that it was an equal comparison of 21, 22 days, whatever we have listed here. So through that lens, we are actually down 55%. We can look at it by quarter over quarter. So right now we only have 2 months within this quarter, and we can compare it to the entire quarter for Q4 2021. And we can also take a look at it, but through the lens of year to date, which I don't think I intended. This should have been my year over year, because what I wanted to do is I want to have one that was an entire year. This is just, I flipped my parameters. So my bad on that one. But hopefully you get the idea. So this should be our year over year, and this one should have been our year to date. But you're able to see that you can enter different comparison methods by utilizing dates. Our next use case. All right, so I'm just hammering through these use cases. Again, if there's any sort of questions that come up, please feel free to use the chat. Please feel free to use the Q&A. I'm more than happy to go into some detail. One of my favorite things to use as well, especially, when looking at exploratory analysis, is down here. The let's see. So having the ability to take control of your dimensions and your measures can really help expedite your ability to explore the data and perform analysis. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So here's a scenario where we have a scatter plot of the subcategories. We see that we have an X and we have a Y through your selected measure. Yeah, that's a good question, Denny. I'd be happy to. I need to clean it up a little bit after seeing that, but yeah, I don't mind at all. All right, so let's take a look at this guy. So here's what it looks like in action. So here I'm able to choose the dimension, right? So I have my sales and I have my profit. So on my X down here, I have sales, and on my Y, I have profit, which is over here. Now, if I gave this a little bit more time, I simply would have had a text box over here, rotate it, and show that as the header. And same thing with X. That would be the best practice. That would be the best thing to do, but I did not. Same thing with the dimension. So here's the subcategory. I could switch this over to region, or I can easily swap this with category, or I could easily swap this with ship mode for whatever reason, if I wanted to. So we could take a look at some sort of insight. We could look at subcategory and we could say, okay, well, we're looking at sales and profit. So this tells me that, wow, our tables are actually performing pretty badly when it comes to profit. Although they are good when it comes to, they're what, one of the top, I don't know, top 5 products when it comes to overall sales. So we need to research tables. But essentially, again, this is pretty easy to do. I'll go ahead and show how that's done. And through this step, so here I have my choose dimension, which again, you just type this out. So I know I have my category, region, ship mode, subcategory. If I wanted to add anything else, I could easily do that. I could have added state or whatever. It's just kind of a placeholder. This is going to look very familiar. This is choose measure X, sales, profit, discount, quantity. And here's my measure Y, which all I did was duplicate it and rename it. Really simple. Sales, profit, discount, and quantity. Great. Now, when I brought this out, you will see that I created this, and I'm trying to figure out why I did. Oh, for the shape. Oh, that's because that's a different thing. That's why I labeled it. All right, here we go. Here's the selected dimension. So again, like I mentioned, I utilize case statements almost exclusively for parameters. So here's my case. When it's choose dimension, when it's category, then bring back the actual dimension category. When it's region, bring out the category. I'm sorry, bring out the region dimension, ship mode, subcategory, subcategory. I think you get it. The key here is just make sure that you, whatever you punch in here is the same text that you punch in. And again, there's that little helper to help you out. If you click describe, it's going to show me what the valid values are for that. What else did I do? Then I have my 2 measures, right? Which is SW4. Boop. So this is a sales, profit, discount, and quantity. And here's my Y. Same thing. Awesome sauce. All right. So that was it. And then I plotted them all out, right? So here's my X, here's my Y. Here's my selected dimension, which I threw to color. And here's my selected dimension, which I was put on text so that you can see it in the labels. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right. For the next use case, we're up to 6. Don't worry, there's only 8. We won't go past 8. So our next use case is bins. So let's mess with some bins. So bins at times can be tricky to get right, but you could utilize some tricks with parameters to help you get there, depending on how you want to get there. So as you can see, the shape of this is, it's maybe not ideal, right? Maybe you'd want to see more of the 0 through 4,200 as opposed to everything being plotted from here to kingdom come. So let's take a look. So we have 2 things that we can do here. I introduced 2 parameters to help drive this. So one is a sales cap. So the sales cap, what that does is it will cap or limit anything after a certain point, and it will assign it that value. Now, granted, okay, this is a disclaimer. This might not be best practice, but it can be done. But if you're going to do it, you need to be very explicit about saying, hey, I'm capping it at this point. So if I was smart, I would go ahead and I would add that little, and if I was to utilize this and show it to someone else, here's where I would put that disclaimer and say, hey, everything's capped at 4,000. Anything over that value is given the value of 4,000. So that's what's happening here. So if I wanted to make this an even tighter, I could go to 3,000, and then you see this value get bigger or I could go to 2000. Gets even tighter. The other thing that I have at my disposal here, whoops, not 300, is this bin value, right? So here it's at 300. If I want to go ahead and look at this through the lens of 100, right, we can see how the shape skews to the right, right? The tail is heading that way. All of our data is in the left-hand bins. There we go. You can see the shape change as we move it. I love this animation, by the way. I think it's really cool that they added that. But yeah, so here's, again, this one is pretty darn easy. So all I did was introduce this bin sales cap, which is just an open float. I signed it 3,000. I could have had a step size. I could have done other things. I guess actually I could have just put all instead of having it as a range. But that's what I did. So that is to set the cap. Here's the bin value. So this bin value, again, this is for the binning of that, and that's set to 400. And I said, okay, step size of 200. So it has to be in an increment, I'm sorry, 20. So it has to be an increment of 20. And then I created this new calculated field called sales capped. And this is, I finally found out what this is called. It's not if, which is what I traditionally call it. It's immediate if statement. So for all of you that were wondering, immediate if. So here is the sales. I want to make sure that the sales is over that cap. If it is over that cap, then set it to the cap limit. If it's not, then just give me the sales number. So very easy. And then when you right click on this, go to create and go to bins. You'll see that since I already have it, I'm just going to recreate it. So here's bins 2. Now for the size of the bin, I want to utilize the parameter I gave it. So I have bin value, which will drive that. And I simply hit OK, and I'm good to go. And then I bring my sales capped bin up to my columns, and I have my count of orders on my rows. And I filtered for 2021. But that was a pretty simple, easy thing to do within Tableau. All right, we're getting down to our final 2 use cases. And those happen to be automated insights override. So this is something that I find to be particularly useful. I find it to be kind of fun, especially if you're in an environment where you might be handing off or trying to develop self-service analytics that you want to hand over to someone else, allow them to enter their own insights, and then in turn, share that with somebody else, share that with a client, a partner, whatever it might be. Now, granted, that's a double-edged sword, right? Because you're allowing them to say something that might not be vetted by you, but we'll handle that in another discussion. So anyway, what we want to do is we want to provide these automated insights, but allow for them to be overwritten. So in this example, I overwrote the automated insight that said, hey, wow, this is a great year compared to last year. That's a very relevant and insightful comment. All right, so here's the part where I consider this input, right? So this is where the end user, imagine Tableau server environment, they're going to look at this and they're going to be able to override something. So what I did is I created, let's start with the automated text. Okay. So here I'm telling the end user, choose to use the automated insight or provide your own commentary. So right now I have it for automated, and you'll see that this box became grayed out, meaning that it's not functional. I wanted to have that visual cue so they know that, does this course demonstrate how parameters are built step by step, the logic behind the calculated fields? Oh, I can get into that a little bit. It's not really a course, but in the hands-on portion, we'll get to that. Sorry, that was a question from the group. So here's, again, automated. and override. So the automated text, this year's sales total of 733,000 compared to last year's sales total of 609,000. For comparison, I threw out this little slope graph to show where we started, where we ended, and you can see the way it trends over time. So again, if I'm the end user, if I'm an account manager, or if I'm working with a client, I can go ahead and say, okay, that's a nice insight, but I know a little bit more about this, and I want to provide more context. So you'll see that I have this visual cue, again, parameter driven. It turned it to green and say, hey, this is active now. And I could say something like, this year's sales are great. They were helped by our binder sale in Q4. I don't know if that's true or not, but I could say something like that. And then we'll see that my headline or my automated insight is now overwritten by what I provided. And then if I wanted to share this with the client or have something that's printable, I don't want them to print this. What I'd like for them to print is this. I want it nice and clean, right? So here's the comment that passed through, as well as the insights that are available within here. So overridden automated insights. Trying to think if there's anything else. Again, if I flip this back to automated, jump back over here, then it's back to the automated text. I need to make this a little bit bigger. I'll write them in here. All right, I'll do that later. Oh, here we go. There we go. Now it fits. Way to go. So use case number 7. One more use case. Let's see what we got. So use case number 8 from current slide is maps. So I think everyone and their mom loves maps. To me, it's one of the coolest parts of Tableau. Very powerful, very easy to use. This is something that I teach my class at Baldwin Wallace, and it's something I built for that. It was really a matter of understanding how the data works and stacking data and all that, and then being able to perform geographical insights. But you could use parameters to select the starting point, limit the results, and again, drive insights. So let's check it out. Let's see what this looks like. So here's airport flight data. And for this parameter, this would be a good use case for that search that I built in use case 1, right? So if we're looking at this, there's quite a bit. And who knows what half this means? I don't know. All right, Kevin. Awesome. So let's take a look. Where should we start? We could start somewhere like Amsterdam. And we could see all the flights that are within 400 miles of Amsterdam. If I wanted to extend that out and say, okay, what's within 200 miles? Right? That confines it to all those flights within 200 miles. Or I could look at 500 miles, or I could look at 5,000 miles. Wow, that's a lot. But with this data set, I just thought it was something cool. Again, I'm not going to drive a lot of insights right now with this, but it's just kind of fun to see, even looking at somewhere like Cleveland. Seeing the distance, at least as the crow flies, from point A to point B. So you can see that it's 920 miles down to Tampa, and it's 897 down to Orlando. So yeah, so really cool stuff. Maps are awesome. Yay, maps. All right, you might think that's it, but it's not. There's still a little bit more. Let's go from the current slide. Here are some other use cases. I just scratched the surface. We still have a lot more to go through. Not with me personally today, but some good use cases I've seen. Lauren does this and does a nice job with this. is using parameters and initial SQL queries to help limit results, right? So if you want that pass through and you want to limit the results of what you return, you could utilize parameters in that initial SQL query to help do that. So initial SQL is something that's probably a little bit more advanced. It's for those of you that are using custom SQL queries and things like that. You can use parameters to limit the date ranges. So if you, instead of using filters, you could use parameters and say, okay, give me the starting point, the end point, and utilize that as and say, okay, that date has to be between these two selections. You can also use parameters to filter across data sources. This is something that I like to employ if blending data is not your thing, or maybe you're not really liking the way relationships are working in Tableau or the way that they're being filtered. This is a surefire way to try to filter across data sources. As long as you're filtering on the same parameter, it's a shared parameter between the two. I've found that to be incredibly useful over the years. You could use the show and hide worksheets. The reason why I didn't show that today is I think that it's I think that the UI for that is greatly improved, and I just haven't done it in some time. If I remember correctly, I don't even think that you have to do that. You don't even have to show hide. You can use parameters to drive reference lines. So if you're building a chart or graph and you have a reference line, you can have that driven by a parameter, which is pretty awesome. Even if you have like a standard deviation, you can set the standard deviation to 1, -1, or to 2, and you could have that all be parameter driven. Very cool stuff. So what I'd like to do is have at least a look. I realize that we're at 4, or we're close to 4, so we might have time for at least 1 or 2 hands-on sessions. The cool thing is, for those of you that have Tableau, you already have the data. So everything that I built is based off the Superstore dataset, which can be found here. It's magically hidden within your Tableau repository. So if you go to Documents, My Tableau Repository, Data Sources, I have 2021.4, but if you have any of them, you can go ahead and click within there, ENUS for us US folks. You'll see the sample Superstore dataset there. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to take a poll. So I'm going to launch this poll. Hopefully you all can see the poll that's out there. So we can do a hands-on session in terms of anything that was pulled up. We could try to build it together. And I'm going to see if there were any questions in the meantime. And if I was more technically advanced, I'd probably play some other songs that have the word power in it. Like, I don't know, there's a bunch. I've Got the Power, right? I think is that Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch? Or CNC Music Factory? It's one of them. There was a question out here. Can that text override be utilized by a person with a viewer license? And the answer is, I believe so. Danny, that's a good question. I believe so. There are certain things that you're able to limit, right, for security purposes. All right, let's see. We'll give everyone, we got almost 78%. There's also a question out here. Does SQL query hinder performance? That's a loaded question. So if you create a SQL query and bring it in as an extract, it's almost like you're essentially doing a select statement and bringing it into your environment. and it's extracting the data. So then it's really nice and teed up in a Tableau data extract, also known as a hyperfile for Tableau usage, right? It's almost like the native language, the native way Tableau wants to see it. You can also look at it through a live connection, and that has both positives and negatives. There are times when you go through a live connection and it could be a huge data set, and you might run into performance issues that way, because every time you drag something out into the Tableau interface, essentially it's writing a SQL query and trying to bring it in and trying to perform the calculation and visualize it for you. So good question. But yeah, the answer is that it depends. I don't think I missed anyone else, so we should be all right. All right, I think we have the feedback from everyone in a tight race. We have the table calculations and dates. So let's go ahead and look at the table calculations one. And I'm going to start from scratch. But I'm not going to lie. I'm going to have my handy thing next to me. So give me 1 second. So I got this guy. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. So in the meantime, while we had the poll going, I hope that you were able to check out that data set, connect to the Superstore data set. And that's what we have here. So I went ahead and pulled it up. This is what your data screen should look like if you went through that manner, right? We connected to a SQL, a Microsoft Excel. That was our data source connection. And I'm simply just going to grab orders, our order tables here, and drag it into our pane. And again, I have the choice of live, meaning that it's tied directly to that Excel spreadsheet. And if a change happens to the spreadsheet, I click refresh and it's going to update immediately, or I can create a Tableau data extract, aka a hyperfile off of that. So in this case, I'm okay with live, and I'm going to go ahead and click sheet 1. Out the gate, here are our dimensions, and here are our measures. So we had the table calculations is the one we wanted to do. So let's take a look at that. All right. So step 1 was, let's take a look at let's create a parameter. So as with many things in Tableau, there's more than one way to bake a cake. You can create a parameter by clicking here, the caret, and clicking parameter, or I can click anything over here. I can right click and create a parameter. I tend to do that just out of habit. I think you can also go to analysis. I lied, you can't. No, you can create a calculated field from there, but not that. So I'm going to go ahead and click this caret. I'm going to create a parameter. And I know that this parameter, I'm going to call this table calc select. And I don't want it to be float. I would like for it to be string. And I'm going to provide the values. So I'm going to provide a list. And I'm going to click here. And I'm going to choose across. And down. And table. All right, I'll give you guys a second to go ahead and do that. So this is step one. We're essentially laying the framework for our parameter be used. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my heat map. So let's quickly create our heat map. Pretty easy. I'm going to bring my region over to columns. And I'm going to bring my category over to rows. And you see we have the shape of a table, or the shape of our heat map. I'm simply going to change my mark. I'm going to go from text over to square. And for now, just to finish our little happy heat map here, I'm going to put sales over on color. Awesome. Look at our. I'm also going to click on label. Is there a question? Jen, did you have a question? Maybe not. Okay. Sorry. Let, label. And there we go. Okay. Hey everyone, I think I dropped out. I guess my internet was unstable for a moment, but I'm back. So I apologize for that. Let's go ahead and continue creating our heat map. So I'm going to share my screen. Share screen one. All right, so we're here. That was weird. Let's see. Let me go here. And then our next step is I created 3 table calculations. So here's a nifty little trick, right? So that was showing a table calculation that showed percent of total. So right now we're looking at just sales. So if I go here and I click this caret and I go down to quick table calculation, I can see percent of total. So again, I click the caret or I right clicked on sum of sales. I went to quick table calculation and then click percent of total. And when you do that, it's going to bring up the percentages. I think it defaults to table across. So let's see. It does. Yep. So there's my 100% table across. Now remember, in my example, I was able to have those row and the row and column grand totals. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'll blow this up, by the way. Sorry. I just realized it's pretty small. All right. Okay. So from here, I have my analysis, totals, show row grand totals. And now my analysis, totals, show column grand totals. Awesome. So I see that's 100% across, which is great. So my next trick is if I want this, if I want this as it is, I could just simply click and drag it down to here. And I just need to rename it. So instead of being calculation 1, we'll call it table across. Okay. So again, in order to do that, all I did was click and drag down there. For those of you that want to try another method, You can actually double click within here. And it didn't do what I hoped it would do. Let me try something quick. There it is. So if you don't, while it's in this state, if I double click and highlight with it, what's in here, it actually gives me the calculation. So granted, I cheated and I clicked and dragged down here and I just called it table calc across. I can also create a calculated field, which again, I can create that calculated field by clicking here and doing so, clicking here and doing so, or clicking here and doing so. I'm going to go ahead and do it here from here. I'm going to create a calculated field. I'm just going to call this table calc. Oh. And it's going to be what I copied and pasted before. I'm going to copy and paste in here and it will be available. I'm going to hit OK. And I need for the entire table. So I'm just going to duplicate this and rename it. And this is going to be table. All right, so that is steps 1, 2, and 3. Then I want to bring in the selected table calculation, right? So let's take a look over here. So that looks like this. And I'll just, I'll do it the long way. So here I'm going to create a calculated field, and I'm going to call this selected table calc. Again, here's why you could do an if statement. In this case, I prefer case. The pun was intended there. So here's my table calc select. You'll know it's a parameter when it's purple. And I'm going to say when across, then table calc across. When down, then table calc down. When table, then table calc table. And you have to end it with an end. So that's what that looks like. So I'll give you guys a minute there, just to check it out. Make sure you're in good shape. Okay, so I'm going to assume everyone's good there. And all this is being recorded too, by the way, if you ever want to come back and revisit it. Let me go ahead and do that. So I'm going to hit OK. So for my next trick, let me try to remember how to do this part. Okay, so here we have our table calc across calculation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that with my selected table calc. So I'm going to grab my selected table calc and drop it on top of here. And you'll see that it updated, right? So it went from the percentage over to these float. Again, if you want to go ahead and change your format, I recommend clicking on everything that you just created, select the table calc through table calc table, go down to default properties, number format, and then selecting percentage. So the nice thing about doing it that way is you do it once, it will update all formatting going forward. It's not like this superficial aesthetic. So you'll be in good shape there. Now you'll notice here I'm going to go ahead and bring out that parameter. So here's my parameter. And you'll see when I select across or down or table, nothing happens, right? The magic isn't there yet. I have to tell it what to do based on these selections. So here's where the magic occurs. So let's go ahead and click this caret and go down to edit table calculation. Now we're cooking with gas here. So you'll see here I have table calc across, table calc down. So across is already set to going across. Table calc down, I can now select down, and you'll see that it's doing what I want it to do. I want it to go table down. And here is, if I hit table calc table, right? I want it to be the entirety of the table. Go ahead and click on that. And then I want to use specific dimensions, region, and category. And you'll see that it highlights everything. So it lets me know that it's incorporated everything. It's going down and across. So when I hit X, we'll see here's across and down, boom, and table. So there, we have everything. All right, so hopefully you guys were able to follow along with that. I appreciate you guys providing the feedback in the poll. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to everything. I do hope to be able to share this with everyone in terms of this workbook. I have a few things I want to clean up, make it a little bit easier for the end user. I'll put things in folders and have kind of like a how-to guide, but I hope you all found this to be useful. I do have a few more slides. Are there any questions, comments that I can answer now? What caret did you click? So there's a couple carets. Oh, on this, under the marks. So there, when I hover over it, there's going to be a little caret here for selected table calc. So if I click on that and I go to edit table calculation, it's going to bring up the pane, this table calculation pane, and that's what I was working off of. Okay, edit, yep, you got it. Not sure if you can address here or even possible, but is there a way to set parameters to exist across files? As an example, I have used parameters to arrange sites into region groups. I'd like to maintain those region parameters across multiple files. Can that be done? You know, that's a good question, Denny. So Denny is asking if he's got a region group that he'd like to maintain. I'm almost wondering if you want to use a set in this scenario. Yeah, I'm not too sure, Denny. We could follow up afterwards too, or you could send it out to the group as well on LinkedIn. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't able to help with that one. Good question. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. So we're at. So in closing, we have the again, the next meeting is going to be in April 14th. So we're a couple months out. Right now, everything's to be determined. The location, the topic, we're always open for anything. So please feel free to reach out if you can supply either of those. We're always open. Hopefully one day we'll be past this pandemic and be able to see one another again on a regular basis. I miss the sense of community that we have. So hopefully we'll get back to that. And again, don't forget, please join us on LinkedIn. And don't be a stranger. Feel free to reach out, join the group, enjoy the Tableau. Oh, thanks. And then enjoy the Tableau conference if you can make it. It'll be the best thing since sliced bread.